boys and girls. It is Miss Kelly, and we are starting Chapter 3, Native American Cultural Regions. So in Chapter 2, we talked about how the Native Americans sort of adapted to their environment, right? And we kind of zoomed in on one of those environments, the Arctic, and we learned a lot about the Inuit. Now, in this chapter, Chapter 3, we're going to look at other environments, other what we call cultural regions that cover what is now today the United States. And we're going to talk about how each environment is very unique. The Native Americans that lived in each environment had to adapt to that particular environment, and that the adaptations were very different from region to region. So today you're going to need your textbook, your social studies textbook, and your chapter 3 packet. Okay, you're going to need your chapter 3 packet, which you should have gotten in class. So before we go over and look at the book, let's just take a look for a minute at this picture here. And I found this picture online and I thought it was very beautiful. And it made me sort of stop and look and think, and I had a lot of questions, right? I kind of wondered, just looking at this picture, I wonder where they are. Where are they? Okay, so if I'm thinking about Native Americans and their environments, where might this be? What clues do you see in the picture that tell you where they may be located? Right, look in the background. Do you see any mountains? Do you see any hills? Does it look like the Arctic of the Inuit? Does it look like the desert? Remember the environments we learned about? Does it look like the mountains? Does it look like maybe the grasslands? Okay, what do you think the people in the picture are doing? Take a close look at what they are holding, maybe what they appear to be doing with those things. Now in the background, I see what appears to be kind of like a village. So what kind of a village do you think that is? Do you think that those are people that sort of build their homes and stay there for a while? Or do you think that they sort of migrate and they're more nomadic, where they travel? And why do you think they would build their homes? Why would they put their homes right near a river? I'm wondering about that while I am looking at that picture. So as we're reading this chapter, as we go through each lesson, I want you to be thinking about how did the environment and the available resources in each of these environments affect different Native American cultures. So depending on where the Native American tribes lived, how did their environments affect their culture? Okay, so now we are going to go over to our textbook. And we are going to open our textbook to page 28 and 29. Okay, it looks like that. It says Chapter 3, Native American Cultural Regions, 3.1 Introduction. Okay, so you can follow along in your textbook as I read. In Chapter 2, you read about how the first people settled the Americas. You learned ways that one group, the Inuit, adapted to the Arctic environment. In this chapter, you will see how several other Native American groups adapted to different geographic areas. By the 1400s, Native Americans had developed a wide variety of cultures or ways of living. Many groups lived in villages. Most were nomadic, moving from place to place as changes in seasons made food available in different areas. Historians call the areas where several cultures developed cultural regions. Native Americans lived in 7 cultural regions. These regions were the Northwest Coast, California Intermountain, Southwest, Plateau, Great Plains, Eastern Woodlands, and Southeast. Historians identify the cultural regions of Native American groups by looking at their artifacts. Artifacts are objects made by humans. Each Native American group created clothes, tools, and whatever else they needed from the natural resources around them. For example, Native Americans living along the forested Northwest coast used wooden boxes for food storage. Native Americans living in the treeless Southwest kept food in pots made from local clay. So they used whatever they had in their environment. Look at the annotated map to the right. It shows the 7 major Native American cultural regions. As you read this chapter, locate each region and use this map to remember information about different Native American groups. What was the environment like in each region? How did these environments affect Native American cultures? So you can see here on this map, they have it shaded in different colors, and they don't have it labeled with the name, but you can see that this is broken up into the 7 different regions, okay? And today you're going to be coloring a map of your own just so that you have it as a reference. So let's go back to the Google Slides for a minute, and let's talk about some of the words that were included in the first section of our chapter. We had the word culture, which is the way of living. So how did people live, right? What did they do to survive? What did they eat for food? What did they wear for clothing? What were their homes like? What was their religion, right? All of those things are part of culture, or how people live. The next word was nomadic, and nomadic means moving from place to place. So if a Native American group is nomadic, it meant that they traveled, they followed where they would find the food. So think about when we learned about when they came across the land bridge, they were following the big game animals, they were following the food. They were nomadic, they were moving from place to place. So they weren't just building homes and staying there forever. They were moving wherever they could find food. And it might depend on the season. It might depend on whatever big game they were hunting or what they were hunting for food. But nomadic tribes moved from place to place. Now, here are the 7 Native American cultural regions that were mentioned in section 3.1. Up here, and if you look, you can see that this is the current outline of the United States. So you can kind of tell a little bit about where you might be familiar with the peninsula of Florida here, right? So you can kind of see that that is present day United States, but thousands and thousands of years ago, it was not the United States. So up here we have the Northwest coast. Then we have what they call the Plateau region. This region is called the California Intermountain region. This is the Southwest, the Great Plains. Remember way back in chapter 1, we learned about the Great Plains? Well, there they are. The Southeast, there's Florida, the peninsula of Florida, and the Eastern Woodlands. You may recognize these, the Great Lakes. And New Jersey is right about there. So we would be in the Eastern Woodlands cultural region. Artifacts are objects that are made by people, okay? They're objects that are made by people that they might use for cooking, for storing food, for hunting, for decoration. And here are some examples of some Native American artifacts. You see some arrowheads. There is like a piece of pottery that may have been used to store water or food. This is like a tomahawk that looks like a piece of an antler, and it appears to be decorated with feathers. This would be used to grind down things, especially corn. We're learning about corn and reading. They would use this. It's sort of like almost like a little bowl, and then they would take the stone and grind the corn. This looks like it's some sort of a pitcher, maybe to carry water in. And this is a basket that they would have weaved from the grasses in the land around them. So these artifacts are objects that were made by Native Americans hundreds or thousands of years ago that they made out of the nature around them, the environment around them, right? They didn't take a drive to Walmart to pick up, a storage container for their food. They had to make one, okay? So maybe they had to make it out of clay. Maybe they had to make it out of, they mentioned the Northwest coast, they would make it out of wood because trees and wood were plentiful there. They had to use what they could find in the environment around them. Okay, so what you're going to do now that we've read section 3.1 is you're going to complete in your chapter 3 packet, you're going to complete the page for section 3.1, and you're also going to complete this map. And this map shows the Native American cultural regions, and you can color code this any way you want. You can either color it like the example that we saw over here. If you'd like to use the same colors, you are certainly free to do that, or you could use your own colors if you want. It's up to you. But you're going to shade these just so you have them different. So as we're going through, you can kind of flip back and say, oh, okay, the southeast, I colored that yellow. There is where we're talking about for that part, okay? So you're going to do section 3.1 in your chapter 3 packet, and you're also going to color this map, okay? So do those in your packet. Make sure that you put your packet in a safe place, preferably in your social studies book, and so that you will have it when you come to school next, okay? Have a great day, everybody.